Hi guys, welcome back to Blue Moon Rising TV. Today we are asking the question, the impossible question. Can Pep Guardiola, who's not even the manager of England, help England win a World Cup?
In before comments saying get out of Pep's arse.
Right, you've got to stick with us here because there is a process that we're going to take you through. And maybe at the end of this,
wonderful journey.
You might come out of it thinking,
maybe get to the semis.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, at absolute best.
Yes.
No, if you're an England fan or if you're not, we're going to talk a little bit about international football and the influence. Really, the video is about the influence that Pep Guardiola has had.
Yeah.
Beyond just the scope of his team, his club team.
England's international football into Pep, basically.
It's England versus Spain. We're recording this on the day of the game, and this is going to be obviously you can still see, despite him never managing there, Pep Guardiola's influence on that Spain side even today.
Definitely.
Right, we're going to talk you through a little bit of how. Let's start with Spain. Okay, so Spain.
There's no better place to start, really, is there?
Arguably one of the best football teams, national football teams ever. They won 3 major competitions on the bounce.
Iconic.
Absolutely brilliant. And first of all, they won the 2008 Euros. That was under Luis Aragonés. He was a great manager, probably undervalued, under-recognised a little bit because he was the guy who had the guts to bench Raúl. Yep. He was one of these first managers.
I love Raúl as well, great player. So
absolutely immense player, you know, did it all. But he didn't fit into the system. And who does that remind you of already? This is a player who Guardiola will have been, when Aragonés was managing, he will have still been sort of finishing the end of his playing term. But it reminds you of Guardiola and that ruthlessness that he does have when necessary.
2010,
and then
right?
in 2010, but the influence of Aragonés was still there. But in 2010, they beat Holland 1-0. My highlight was Nigel de Jong flying kick on Xabi Alonso. It was unreal. There were 14 yellow cards in that game, and it was the epitome of total football versus anti-football.
And DJ leading the way there.
And he was a City player at that time as well, wasn't he?
Right, I was supporting him. That was the best part of the World Cup.
That was unforgivable. It was so funny. But yeah, they were a great team. And at this point though, the team was based around Barcelona. There's no denying it. They had 6 Barcelona players in that starting 11. And then they'd signed David Villa, who was just going to come into the team. Fabregas was on the bench. He came on in the final. And when he was at Barcelona, you know that obviously he was at Barcelona before he went to Arsenal, before going back there again. His idol was Pep Guardiola when he was at Barcelona because he was the captain at the time. And he wanted to emulate really Pep Guardiola's success. So there's so many fingerprints of Pep Guardiola just all over this team.
The thing is mainly the style though, wasn't it? The way that they played. That's what basically changed. The fundamental system, the way they set up. But that's what changed during Spain's years when they won the World Cup. They basically just mimicked the Barcelona style. And it makes sense. If you've got a team that's all conquering with brilliance left, right and centre like the Barcelona team, you just basically try and copy it. And the fact that several of the players were involved made life a lot easier with the Busquets, the Xavi, Iniesta, and then your Piqué and your Puyol and all these kind of players all there, and then even Villa was there as well.
Villa's
Pedro.
up front.
And then instead of having Messi, what they did is just occasionally use David Silva, which is not a bad little change for the Spanish team.
Yeah, David Silva's always been great for Spain as well. They've always really valued him there. But yeah, it was possession football, it was pressing, it was everything that you can see in the Barcelona team and you can now see in Manchester City team. And just a quick point about why maybe England have been not as successful as they could have been. There's lots of people who will talk about what it exactly is, why England, if we've got some mental issue. But the England team, since the 90s, probably the last time we were half decent, 20 years now we've been rubbish. And it's probably because our players are all from so many different teams.
There's no identity really, is there?
Yeah.
It's a kind of scattergun approach, just led that way in general because of lack of talent, I guess, from certain clubs.
I think it's also, it points to how good you could say our league is because when you've got a strong league, you've got players who are playing all over different teams. But I hate to say it, in the 90s when you had basically United dominating, that was the last time we were good. And it's because you had, even if they weren't all playing to the best of their abilities, you'd have your Beckhams, your Scholes, even your Butts, your Nevilles, all over the team. It was United, and that forged that identity. And that is something that now England might be able to get back. Then I'm going to talk about this a little bit later on, but now we've got players like Klopp coming in, Guardiola, Pochettino, all sort of playing this new style of play. That might benefit, but we'll come back to that in a bit.
In general, Spain definitely did benefit, and that's loads of people have gone on record saying the same thing. Spain did benefit from Guardiola manipulating these Spanish players, giving them identity, because before that, yeah, maybe at times lacked a little bit of self-belief, a bit of confidence, but they came ruthless and clinical, and became the Spanish team that dominated European football and world football for a long time, and rightfully so. And then obviously he went on to manage Bayern Munich. He was only at Bayern Munich for a year when the German team won the World Cup. But even Joachim Low, the manager himself, he came out and said after they beat Argentina 1-0 that he's lucky that his players have a manager like Guardiola to teach them. I might have paraphrased that slightly, but that was the message he was getting. He was saying that he's lucky that so many of his squad are trained by a coach like Guardiola, which is high praise from a World Cup winning manager. This was obviously like there were 7 players involved from Bayern in the Germany team, 6 in the starting lineup. I think it was like Neuer, Lahm, Boateng, Cruz, Schweinsteiger. I've forgotten a couple more. Muller there. There were so many players involved. And in general, the stats did back it up. During that team, 5 of the starting players for Bayern, their pressing increased. Even Neuer's distribution went from 79%, which is already ridiculous for a keeper, to 90%. And this style is one. Yeah, it's ridiculous. That's better than most midfielders, and then Neuer's there. Yeah. Spraying passes about. But this went up under Guardiola, and this became a huge part of the system that Germany adopted. And it's undeniable to deny that fact that undeniable to deny. It's undeniable. Yeah. Listen to me. I'm trying not to deny it. But it's a clear influence on the way they're playing, and Lowe himself did admit that.
Yeah, I mean, and you look at Lahm as the prime example. Yeah. This is a player who always played as fullback and all his career, and then Guardiola came in, moved him into midfield, and then voila, for Germany did the same. Yeah. And so you can point to exact examples where Guardiola has tried things out, and then you've seen it reflected in the national team.
It makes a lot of sense if you've got 6 players playing from Bayern or 6 players from Barcelona or whoever, if your national team, to then just mimic a little bit that style. Yeah. It does make a lot of sense. And obviously a little bit of credit's got to go to Jupp Heynckes, because Bayern were great the year before and their confidence was growing. Yeah. But their confidence and their style and identity was cultivated a little bit more under Guardiola in general, and that just helped with the identity and the kind of culture of the national team. And this is what leads on to England. And this is now, you were reading something this morning, weren't you, about this idea of England, Guardiola already potentially starting to infect a little bit of the English culture.
So one of the reasons that we're doing this is because Martin Samuel, who's actually one of the few people who back City, tends to for the usually, yeah, exactly. He's probably actually that he's just neutral, but he's just a normal football fan. So he said some nice things about Guardiola, and he sort of really rates the way he plays football. But he said that even though we've only got 2 senior players right now who are English, who are playing for the national team, and that's Stones and Sterling, already you can see the influence that they're having on the game. Now, Stones against Scotland, he came in for some stick because he had some passes go a bit wayward, etc. But Gareth Southgate, do you know what? I was unsure about the idea of Southgate coming in. I thought it was kind of, again, the safe option. Yeah. But hearing him speak and reading these quotes, I'm starting to feel really positive.
I'm not, I'll be honest, still.
Right, if you listen, though, to the quotes that he's come out with, he said that, so when people talked about Stones, he said, well, everyone looks at PK and saes, why don't we have a defender like PK?
Oh, yeah, so it's good, yeah.
And he's saying, well, to have a defender like PK, well, you've got to train him in a certain way. He'll have gone through the difficulties. He'll have played the misplaced passes in the past to get to the point where he is, which is one of the best strikers in the world. Defenders. That would be changing positions about a bit too much.
He did say he remembers playing coaching against a PK at 22 for United, and he wasn't the player he was now for Barcelona. And then Stones is 22 now. It's the very same age. It's very similar age, obviously. Same kind of play, same kind of. It's a very relevant comparison. But in general, I think the idea of this article was to talk about the hallmark the imprint he's already having, even not necessarily on the performance, just in general. Like Joe Hart is playing now football somewhere. He's England's best goalkeeper because he didn't fit the culture. Yeah. And now Stones is obviously already causing debates about how we play football. Guardiola is already encouraging discussion and ideas and like this kind of reassessment of what makes England who they are and how we should play. He's already come into the Premier League and started ruffled a few feathers, and this is seeping into the England team. And the most interesting for me as a kind of advocate and fan of youth football in general is this isn't going to go away. This is only going to go stronger. Now, England do have something of a golden generation in the under-17s, around the under-18s, because they actually beat Germany the other month 8-1. They battered them. Right. And this is, interestingly, made up of 5 City players were in that squad as well. 4 started. Kurt Anderson, a young local lad from Barrow. Then we had Joe Latibodiere there, Sancho, and I think it was Phil Foden. And then Ian Carlo Poveda was on the bench. This is a phenomenal generation here. And the most encouraging thing is they all play football the right way. They pass it, they move. The keepers are very comfortable on the ball, like Angus Gunn is. A big reason why maybe he will be favoured by Guardiola one day. Yeah. But People like Phil Foden, people like Jadon Sancho, these are already Guardiola kind of players, and they've been schooled this way for a long time. And the other clubs, the other academies, fair play, they are taking note, and football is being played the right way from a youth level now. And having someone like Guardiola come into the country who's going to encourage that, having a man at the very top of the game say this is the right way, only people like Southgate are going to look at Guardiola and go, well, if he thinks it's right, I think it's right too. And it could have a very positive domino effect on English culture and the way players play. And the likes of Phil Foden and the under-17s of England players, if they're all battering teams playing good football, even the likes of Angel Gomez, a United young lad, he's a very good midfielder as well.
Yeah.
And then loads of players from Reading and Spurs and Arsenal as well who are pretty good. If these are all playing football the right way and being encouraged, and I do think they'll get a chance at some point under Guardiola because he'll like the way they play, this is going to eventually knock on, and it could cause this kind of domino effect eventually. 4 years from now, sorry, 2-3 years from now, these players, maybe the generation after, could be breaking into the England team and causing a bit of a kind of reassessment of what we do as a football nation.
Well, the thing is, you look at England over the last few decades now, what is the philosophy? What is the style of football?
There isn't one, is there?
There isn't one. It's always been 4-4-2, get it up top, get it to your Shearers, get it to your Linekers, which was great in the 80s and 90s, but now we want to be beyond that. Football's changed. Yeah. England haven't. We keep getting managers who seem to just rehash the same old thing again and again. But that's why I'm actually, from reading these quotes, that Gareth Southgate strikes me as somebody who thinks a little bit more about the game. And he was saying, for example, Rio Ferdinand, obviously, I hate to say it, he was a great defender, but he even said that possibly Rio Ferdinand wasn't utilised to the best of his ability because in the English system and playing at United as well, he was a conventional defender in a conventional back four, and he had actually a bit more about him to his game. People said that he could have been a sweeper, he might have been more effective, or a Stones type player. Yeah. And he's seeing this, Gareth Southgate, and the more I hear from him, the more I'm excited about it. So it's about a change of mentality in England. City's success arguably could be, and this leads us back to the title of the video, actually linked in with City's success and England's success could go together hand in hand.
It's a long stretch and there's loads to happen because we do have
there's caveats and caveats.
There is, in general, the English culture in terms of development and integrating of youth players is a little bit more rotten than it is over in Spain and Germany. And we do have a problem there, like we'd have the B team situation. We don't have chances for these young players. But if someone does, grow a pair and actually decide to give some of these incredibly good young players, and they are that good, trust me. Germany 8-1, like under 70s, and that isn't a rare occurrence. We're beating teams like Greece 6-0, and this generation are wiping all teams aside, and the under 18s and 19s are doing quite well. If someone actually decides to make a stance, and it could be Guardiola from the very highest, usually people follow suit, and he could be the one to start this, and then we could see a very good positive knock-on effect in the England team. So it's possible.
I was saying that I don't think it's necessarily just down to Guardiola. I think the fact we've got Klopp here, he plays the right style of football. Pochettino as well.
Conte, manager.
Conte, Koeman as well. If all these managers are there's a sea change in the thought of how to play Premier League football, that will seep in because ultimately managers are going to follow what the club footballers do because it just makes it easier. They don't have enough training sessions, they don't have enough matches, they don't have enough friendlies, although they have more than ever before now, but they still don't have enough to really put an imprint on. So you need to lead from the club side. Yeah. Barcelona did it, Bayern did it. Now, could City, Spurs, Liverpool, not United? God, just quickly, I remember there's been talk about Jose Mourinho becoming England manager one day, and you're talking about having the right attitude. Could you imagine him giving any of the young players a chance? He would just be playing Rooney up front again until he's 40.
Beckham out of retirement.
And yeah, exactly. And it would be horrible to see. So hopefully now you've seen how we're connecting. Rather,
it's tenuous, but it works for us.
Yeah, it works for us.
I think we could be quite lucky. We could see a bit of a sea change here. And I'd really like to see some of these players given a chance, and hopefully Guardiola will become the man to at least encourage people to think a little bit, reassess what they want, how players are treated.
That's it.
At least consider how we play football. And like the Stones, and it's got Claudio Bravo as well, Hart being moved on. We're seeing how English players are, if they're not, they've been taught to see things differently. Hart's definitely been taught to see things a little bit differently. Stones is playing things differently. Sterling's got a bit more confidence now, and it's just the beginning, I think, definitely. Yeah.
There we go. Now watch England get absolutely battered by Spain tonight. I think it's probably going to happen. But anyway, it's all about the ideas. That's it, not the results necessarily. Anyway, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Even if you're not English, maybe just a little bit of an idea of how Guardiola's tactics can spread across the club and country. Make sure you like the video, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you again tomorrow.